Canelo-Lara is here, and we are looking ahead, so join us as we're making the rounds here on ESPN.com. Jim Basquil alongside my cohort, Brian Campbell. And joining us is Showtime boxing analyst Paulie Malignaggi. We are fortunate to have a terrific analyst to size up this fight. And Paulie, Jim Basquil here in Bristol. When we look ahead, what stands out for you most on paper in this contrast of fighting styles?
You got Canelo, who can box, and he does have some speed, but he comes at you with a bit more killer instinct. He comes at you with, looking for that devastating knockout, and he can get it. He knows how to set it up and go about doing it the right way, And then you got Erislandy Lara, who's more methodical, who's very crafty, has some slick skills, also has the speed, has the southpaw stance going for him. So, it's the craftiness trying to eliminate the eliminating power, so to speak, of Canelo Alvarez, and and in between you have a lot of skills. It's not just craftiness against power. There's a lot of skills in between all that. So I think when you mix the two in the bunch, I think it's hard to pick a winner. I think Canelo really came back from the defeat to Floyd Mayweather, looking spectacularly against Angulo. So it was kind of an answer to all his critics. And Lara just keeps looking better and better every time he goes out there. He kind of flies under the radar if he doesn't have the following of Canelo, but he's a guy who's tough to deal with, and he pretty much should be undefeated. I mean, the Paul Williams loss, we all know she should have got that decision anyway. Yeah,
Paulie, for many of those reasons, this is a fight that many thought Canelo might avoid. How much respect does he deserve for daring to be great in this case?
You got to give him a lot of credit. Guys who are money fighters or, business kind of fighters like Canelo who make everyone money and not just themselves. When Canelo fights, everyone makes a ton of money. He's just a money machine, And you get some of these fighters in every generation. And what happens is, they're put in tough fights, but they're not put in the toughest fights possible. They're not put in maybe the best fights possible. So, because it's in everybody's best interest to keep guys like this winning so everybody can get paid, including the fighter. But he gets a lot of credit because this is a fight that he wanted. I don't think it would have been anybody else's first choice on his team to take on Erislandy Lara. Right. But from what I've been told, it was actually Canelo that said, "Get me Lara." He's been talking a lot. "Get me Lara. I want to shut this guy up." So, from that perspective, he's putting himself at risk because there's just 2 fights ago. He took a loss to Floyd Mayweather, and he's putting himself in harm's way again. As far as this is a fight that he could very well lose. It's a 50-50 fight. I mean, he could really go either way, and a lot of people are picking Lara to win. So you got to give a guy like Canelo credit, who pretty much has all and everything to lose in a fight like this, for still wanting to take on the best available opposition.
Paulie, this is Brian Campbell. Canelo had plenty of trouble, of course, dealing with Floyd Mayweather Jr.'s slickness in their fight last September. How would you compare Lara's style to that of Mayweather's?
It's similar and it's different. I mean, both are slick, both are very intelligent, both have highly crafty skills, but at day's end, there's one Floyd Mayweather, he's the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, but Lara has a lot to deal with, incredible amateur career, slick southpaw stance, and a very good boxing background. That Cuban school is always producing a lot of the most talented fighters in the world, so, I don't expect an easy night for Canelo, whether he wins or whether he loses the fight, it's a fight that's up for grabs, and both guys are going to try to seize the moment in their own respective way. Canelo's going to try to force the issue, and you would expect Lara to try to box and be patient and try to set traps for Canelo. So I think there's possibilities for Canelo to run into trouble, but if he's learned from the Floyd Mayweather defeat, this will be the fight where we can see just how much or what he's learned.
No question about it. Alfredo Angulo showed us, though, that despite Lara's wizardry, he's not immune to getting walked down and hurt and even dropped. What do you think Canelo can learn from what Angulo was able to do that night against Lara?
I don't know if there's a lot to learn for Canelo in that fight. Angulo was walking down Lara, taking 2 and 3 shots to land 1. And it was a good plan for Angulo because, he has the wherewithal to do it, and he has the punching power to where, he kind of had to grind his teeth and try to walk through those punches. But just because you're walking through punches doesn't mean they don't hurt you, doesn't mean they don't affect you. And so little by little, Angulo was slowed down. It was a tough fight, it really was, and it took a lot of toll, even on Lara himself. But eventually he was able to get Angulo out of there because, you only have to take so many punches. You walk in recklessly, yeah, you're going to get to any fighter because the ring is square, but the amount of punishment you take to get in there will also eventually have an effect on you. So fighters don't just walk a guy down just because he doesn't punch hard. You know, there's ways of doing it, and so there's a reason why not everybody will fight Lara like Angulo did. You know, or in general, you know, I don't see that Canelo fighting the way Angulo did. I see Canelo trying to set his own traps because Canelo brings a different set of skills than Angulo does. Canelo has his own hand speed. Yeah, Canelo hits hard and he's going for good body punching, but Canelo, you know, he's a pretty good boxer himself. Maybe he's not as good a boxer as Lara, so he's going to have to force the issue, but I don't think he needs to take the approach that Angulo took, because the approach Angulo took was because he knew he was outclassed and he was outskilled, and so he tried to even the stakes by giving this all-out pressure style to where, okay, I'm going to grind my teeth and I'm not going to care what I get hit with. I'm going to eventually get to him. And you take a chance by doing that. It's entertaining us by doing that, but ultimately it can also fail, and you can take a lot of punishment doing it. And you know, in the end, Angulo failed because of that.
Well, Lara, you know, he went above and beyond to boldly call out Canelo and secure what is now the biggest fight of his career. But how important for Lara will it be to show a similar level of boldness in the ring when it comes to potentially winning over the judges?
Yeah, I think there's a situation there where Canelo is a crowd favorite. He's the political favorite in boxing, so he might have to show a little bit more aggression in order to win the fight. It may not be right, but you know, it may be something that Lara's thinking about. I think Lara maybe has to force the issue a little bit, and I don't think Lara is beyond trying to walk his opponent down if he's starting to dominate. I don't see Canelo coming forward every second of this fight. I really don't see that fight playing out that way. I think there'll be momentum swings, and I think there'll be moments where even Lara will walk down Canelo, you know, because Canelo maybe will back off and try to reset and try to start things over, you know. Canelo has enough speed where he can fight off the back foot at times if he gets confused coming forward. And so, you know, I think in momentum shift, they may go back and forth as far as who's coming forward. You expect Canelo to do more of the coming forward, but I don't put it past Lara as also, if he finds his moment to, you know, put a little pressure himself if he starts to back Canelo often.
Hey, Paulie, considering the possibility of a second loss in 3 fights, quickly, how important is it for a victory for Canelo's future as a marquee brand in the sport?
Yeah, you know, Canelo has one of the biggest names in boxing, so, you know, it's a difficult situation. It's difficult to continue to have that kind of marquee name if you're taking losses. It doesn't mean he can't be a championship-level fighter in boxing anymore. It doesn't mean that at all. It doesn't mean he still won't be among the best, but as far as marketability, maybe even crossover marketability, boxing, unfortunately, is marketed in a way where the more losses you have, the less you're worth, regardless of how good of a fighter you are. And so your crossover potential is only as good as the amount of losses you don't take, you know, regardless of how good of a fighter you are. So somebody like Canelo, it's in his and his team's best interest to not get him beat so much. You know, there's a fighter out there that can probably beat anybody at any time. You know, there's always styles out there for all of us to get beat. But, you know, in Canelo's situation, maybe his team didn't want to risk such a difficult fight. But, you know, again, this goes back to giving Canelo credit. You know, there's a lot to lose here for Canelo, losing this fight. And it's a very difficult fight. But if he wins it, I don't know so much that he'll win over the crossover fans, because Lara's not a big name crossover-wise, but he'll definitely win over more the hardcore fans, because he lost a lot of those hardcore fans with the way he fought with Mayweather. And if he can take on and beat a guy like Erislandy Lara, it'll give him a lot of that core respect from the inner fans of boxing.
He's an outstanding analyst for Showtime Boxing. Paulie Malignaggi, we appreciate you sharing some insight.
Hey, thanks, guys. Always a pleasure.
All right, Paulie, best of luck in the future. Canelo Alvarez-Erislandy Lara, pay-per-view in Las Vegas. What did you make of Paulie's insight?
So much to work with there. Gave us a lot of great stuff. 2 things I really think that stand out. He really spelled out perfectly what's at stake for Canelo,
sure,
especially from that brand standpoint, especially from, you know, what he's trying to build, where he's going moving forward. And then from the Lara's point of view, you know, there's been some passiveness in some of his fights where maybe he wasn't as aggressive as you would have liked. This is a fight where he's going to have to go all in. He's going to really have to pull out and be as bold as he was in securing this fight to maybe have a chance to win on the scorecards.
Again, Canelo-Lara, it's a pay-per-view from Las Vegas. We will have the highlights right here on ESPN.com post-fight. For Brian Campbell, I'm Jim Basquil, as well as for Paulie Malignaggi. We are making the rounds right here on the boxing page of ESPN.com.